ladies. How's everybody doing this evening? So we're going to get started here. We'll just let everybody join in. And we're going to talk health and all kinds of great things. So make sure everybody's here and with us, and then we're going to get started. All right, good. As always, the chat is open. So if anyone wants to say hello or anything you want to make sure we cover, whether it's in this particular wellness module or anyone in the future, comments, questions, you feel free to do that. As always, the first thing I'm going to say is if you haven't purchased already and are reading along in the back of the basics book, I have my notes here of what we're going to be talking about today from the book. So continue to read along. Even if you're not caught up to us, it'll just be good to see or hear the information twice. So I'll talk about it and then you can read about it. It doesn't really matter the order. It's all good information to just get you started. So speaking of that, we are going to refer to the book. I'm going to read some things, whether you've gotten again to that chapter or not. And we're going to start what I'm going to be talking now. We're switching gears. So as a reminder, last time we were talking all about the supplement industry and the problem with the quality and synthetics and what you've been told and possibly been misled or flat out lied to as far as the quality, how the supplement industry works, and how you really do get good quality supplements that truly and genuinely will restore your health. The unfortunate truth is the same problem is in the food universe as well. So we're going to be exploring the same myths, truths, lies, false information that you have been told or sold, so to speak, within the food industry. And we're going to get into it specifically kind of food group by food group. So what I want to talk about is you can read in the book about what happened to the quality of the food. I think we can agree without belaboring the point is that food is just not what it was 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So the quality, the manufacturing, everything is sugar, the amount of fast food restaurants. So it's kind of obvious what's happening to our food sources. So what I want to focus on more here is not the doom and gloom of what happened to the food industry. I want to talk about how to be proactive and causative and tricks and tips and solutions of what you can do is despite what you're surrounded around between low quality foods in general, how can you still be healthy and hopefully make it easier for you to do so? So what we're going to do is we're going to start on the chapters on page 55. We're going to start talking about the fats, the proteins, and the carbohydrates. And what I really want to focus on here is, give me 1 second, just what happened. Again, I'm not going to talk about the American diet. What I do want to talk about is one of the key things that you need to focus on, because there's so many things you're being told as far as what's important, what's not important, fat is good, fat is bad, etc. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. So the first few pages in this chapter talk about quality of foods, and it describes protein and why protein is good, fats and why fats are good, what happens to our bodies when we eat the wrong food, and that's where we're going to pick it up on here. And basically, the food group that you do need to avoid, or is the enemy number one, let's say, are the carbohydrates. And again, it's not because I want you on a fad diet. I'm not actually an advocate for keto. I want you on the correct diet. I don't need a label or any justification that it's popular at the moment. What we're looking at, again, is your body as a machine, as a woman, an engine, so to speak, and then all of the changes that your body goes through for each decade in life. So that's why I focus on this, not because I care whether it's popular, it's a fad diet, or everybody's doing it. It's more what's going to save you as a woman in a female body for the long term. And that's really my ultimate goal. All right. So on page 64, halfway down, it talks about what happens when we consume a lot of carbs. Basically carbohydrates, what we're really consuming is just sugar in a different form. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that carbohydrates are not, they're just some random magically thing, and they're not sugar. So your body can only break things down into a protein, a fat, or a sugar. A carbohydrate that we eat is just an intermediate step on its way to becoming sugar. So people think just because they're not eating spoonfuls of sugar out of the sugar bowl, they're not consuming carbohydrates, and that carbohydrates are not bad. It's just they've been kind of misled in their basic education in grade school on what actually are the three food groups. So they're actually protein, fat, and sugar, not protein, fat, and carbohydrates. carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are just a fluffy version of sugar that come in the shape of bread or a cracker, or possibly a piece of fruit. But when you look at it, if you did under a microscope, what you would see are hundreds and thousands of sugar molecules. So it's not like a carbohydrate is some special thing in its own category. So that's part of why we're getting ourselves some in trouble, is we're misnaming the food groups right at the beginning. So how you can prove this to yourself is if you just bit down on either a piece of bread or a cracker or rice, and if you hold it in your mouth for either a few seconds or a minute or two, what taste do you get? Like, what receptors in your tongue turn on? Is it sour? No. Is it salty? No. It's sweet. So there is the proof that the second these carbohydrate molecules hit the saliva starts instantaneously breaking down, and the flavor or the taste sensation that you get is sweet. So it's kind of proof positive that you probably never thought of, is that if it's sweet, it's probably sugar. Okay, good. So what we're talking about here, we're going to use two words kind of interplay here, is sugar, according to science, the medical model, and the form it's in your bloodstream is called glucose. So glucose is sugar and sugar is glucose. It's not exactly true, but for what we're talking about today, sugar is what it looks like when it's in food. Glucose is what it looks like once it's in your body. So we're going to be using those words, kind of intertwining them, because what we're trying to do is it's the sugar you're eating that's creating the glucose problem in your blood. So we're going to be using those interchangeably for just an understanding of the science behind it. Now, at that point, when this sweet sensation is picked up, and then the body knows sugar is coming, the immediate problem or thing it does is it releases insulin. So actually, I told you before, just a minute ago, but I lied to you, that sugar is enemy number one. Actually, the true enemy is not sugar, it's insulin. Because the problem with what it does to your metabolism and your hormones is because of the interference of what insulin does. And what I mean by that is that if protein made insulin come out, I'd be against protein. If fat made insulin be excreted, I'd be against fat. But the problem is that it's sugar that makes insulin be secreted. And that is actually where the biochemical problem lies, is you want a machine or a body that doesn't secrete insulin. That's actually the absolute bottom truth that is really about what to eat. So it's not even about what to eat. It's actually, the question is what not to eat. So what you want to do is, the game you want to play with the body is never have it secrete insulin. I mean, it will, because it has to keep you alive under circumstances, but you don't want to ever be the one who caused it to occur. So if it naturally metabolically needs to occur because you haven't eaten for 17 days and you're in the wilderness, totally different story. But if it's the day-to-day living, your number one goal for your body is to not have it secrete insulin. That's what the name of the game actually is. Now, the problem becomes is then once this insulin is in your system, it has to be handled at a top priority. So that's why I'm against it. So if you want your body to be fixing your heart, or taking care of your brain cells, or balancing your hormones, or detoxing your gut, or digesting foods or protein, etc., it cannot do any of that until the insulin is back out of your system. That's why it's so annoying, and it's enemy number one. So I kind of talk about insulin being like a really annoying 2-year-old. You know, when you have a 2-year-old around, you can't get anything done, can you? I mean, I love children. But the point is if you're a mom or you're a babysitter and you're trying to get the dishes down, and what is that 2-year-old getting himself in trouble? Like, you hear noises, you're running around, he's pulling at your leg, you're putting dishes in the dishwasher, he's taking them back out of the dishwasher. It's kind of how I look at insulin, is when insulin is around, you have to put your total attention on insulin, just like that 2-year-old. You can't let them alone for a second, or they'll be burning down the house or getting themselves in trouble or who knows what. And that is the problem with insulin. So what isn't getting done? Your house isn't getting clean, the laundry isn't getting folded, the dishes aren't getting done, all the other things that you need to function in a normal daily routine. And so insulin is the equivalent of the 2-year-old. So all these wonderful things that you want your body to do, it cannot do if insulin is present. And the problem with the modern American diet is, what are we doing? Is we're eating some form of carbohydrate or sugar at least 3 meals a day, if not meals in between. So you get up, you have a cup of coffee with sugar, you might have a donut or a croissant, and then it's mid-morning snack at work, and maybe by the in the lunchroom or by the coffee pot, there's somebody brought in donuts, or the company, it's their anniversary and there's a cake. So again, now 2 hours later, you had a cup of coffee and cake, and then it's lunch. You go out with friends and you had a sandwich, so you had more carbohydrates. And then now from eating all those carbohydrates, you're crashing in the afternoon at work. It's 2, 3 o'clock, and your time clock goes till 5 or 6. What are you going to do? You're going back into the lunchroom. You're going into your little snack bag, or in your bottom drawer of your desk. You're pulling out the cookies, the candies, the energy drinks. What are we talking about? More sugar. Then you go home, and then you have dinner, and then you have more carbohydrates. You have bread, you have pasta, you have rice, you have tortillas, you have corn chips, you have all of this stuff. So out of the day, that was like bringing the 2-year-old out every 2 hours. How are you possibly ever going to get anything done? Because every time you turned around, you had to stop what you were doing to go take care of the 2-year-old. And that's why insulin is such a problem. Is it's the equivalent of being the deterrent, and not a good one, from doing all the other activities that are more important, that you want your brain to do, that you want your heart to do, that you want energy, and you want to lose weight, and you want me to balance your hormones. And none of that can happen until this 2-year-old slash insulin is taken care of. So I hope that really makes sense of what we're trying to do. So part of the mistake that we're looking at, as well as we talked about, is the subject of hormones. And we're going to get into that in the next module. So I'm going to lead up to that, because your carbohydrates and the sugar mechanism is intimately involved in hormones. And the reason for that is because insulin technically is a hormone. So one of the things we're looking at is, we've only been told or taught there's 3 hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, which is actually not true. They are the 3 sex hormones, but they're not all the hormones. Again, as you know, when we talked about before, you actually have 50. So what we're looking at here is insulin as a hormone, and insulin as a hormone works against those other hormones. And that is why anyone dealing with any hormonal component, I know to some large or small degree, you have that condition because you're secreting too much insulin. And then what happens is we start talking about your diet, and then the problem becomes, is like, well, I eat pretty healthy. And I can tell you, you might think you eat pretty healthy, but what I'm telling you is you're not eating healthy enough for whatever health situation you're trying to handle. So maybe someone else that's pretty healthy, but if you have a symptom related to hormones, I know you're battling with this 2-year-old. I know you're battling with insulin. So regardless of how much you cut back or cut down, or you eat 50% less junk food than your husband or your sister, though 50% is better, it's still not enough. You're probably needing to bring it down another 5, 10, 20, 30% down from whatever you've cut it back so far. So it's better, but not enough. So that is the delicacy of this insulin reaction, and how it can wreak havoc with just a few molecules of sugar being secreted and dumped into the bloodstream in the form of glucose. So that's what we're looking at. So then now that explains why it's leading to all of these health situations, in addition to weight gain and obesity. And the mistake you have been told is that fat makes you fat. Fat actually gets hot and melts and turns into an oil when it gets down into your intestine. You remember, your body's 98.6 degrees. That's pretty warm. So if you took a stick of butter and you put it in the microwave or in the oven, and you did it at 98.6, it would start melting. So fat does not turn to fat in the body. Fat melts, and then you basically excrete it out in the bowels and the bladder. What doesn't get melted out is this sugar, or this glucose. So when you eat an excess of sugar or glucose that you don't need, the body cannot just excrete it out. It actually has to store it. And where it stores it is in the fatty tissue. So if you actually opened up a fat molecule, there's actually not fat in the fat molecule. There's actually glucose or sugar in the fat molecule. So I think what we've also done in science and medicine is we have misnamed things that, why would you think think there'd be sugar in the fat molecule. I understand where your confusion and where so many people have such a misunderstanding about health and diet and what to do is because some of the nomenclature and terminology that we've decided to call things is completely incorrect. So it would be like calling, my brush, my toothbrush, or my comb, or whatever, the toilet scrubber. You'd be really confused. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not scrubbing the toilet with my toothbrush. You're like, yeah, no, you're not. So silly example, but you could see the naming of things as what has really caused a big part of the problem. So sugar, insulin, when it is secreted, it has to go scavenger up all of the sugar that's been released, and it has to go package it up and put it somewhere. And what it does is it puts it in when it doesn't need it. And that's the other problem, is the amount of carbohydrates you need, because that's the other argument. Is everybody like, well, don't I need them to survive? I'm like, yes, but when I tell you the amount of teaspoons or the amount of grams that you need, you're going to be shocked. So part of the misinformation is coming of how much you think is the norm. And we're going to talk about that as part of this masterclass. The next thing is then, as we're talking about this, insulin is enemy number one. Now that you know this, on page 67, it gets into how this creates a cholesterol problem. So what happens is that, again, if you're eating too much cholesterol, you're eating too much sugar, you're secreting too much insulin. Remember, the body has to prioritize all of that out. And who's in first place? Insulin. So if your liver is in there detoxing, filtering out the insulin, and it should be filtering out the cholesterol, but it can't because you're eating too much sugar and your insulin is too high. Remember, in slot number one, insulin must be handled first. So what happens to that cholesterol? It continues to float around and not ever get metabolized or broken down or excreted. And then you go to the doctor a year later and he does a blood sample and your cholesterol is high. And your cholesterol is not high from eating too much cholesterol. Your cholesterol is actually high because your liver didn't detox out enough. So one of the biggest mistakes I see, and why I love functional medicine when you're talking about root causes, everyone is so preoccupied at the problem that might occur on the front end, and no one ever takes a look at what might be really going on the quote back end. So let me give you an example of this, not with food and diet, and then we'll go into food and diet. So let's say, for example, that you had a dumpster in the back of your business or on a piece of property somewhere. And every time you turned around, there were mice and rats in the dumpster. And it was disgusting and you got tired of it. And the doctor kept telling you, it's like, oh, well, you have to kill those rats, kill those rats. You have a rat problem. You have a rat problem. You have a mouse problem. You have a vermin problem. And you kept handling the rat. Now, what really was the reason? What is the root cause why the rat is there to begin with? It's because of the garbage in the dumpster. So the rats are only there because no one has detoxed or dumped out the food in the dumpster. And then if there was no food or toxins or anything opportunistic or interesting in the dumpster, wouldn't the rats go naturally away without ever having to kill a rat? Okay, good. That's how functional medicine works. The medical model, and you have been taught to focus all of your attention on killing the mice or killing the rat. And everyone has not even admitted or told you to even look at why don't we take a look at what's wrong with our dumpster or what's going on in the dumpster. So many of the health problems you have is not a front end problem. Like I said, it's a back end problem. It's not that you have, quote, too many rats or too much cholesterol or too much thyroid hormone. It's that you don't have enough detox and excretion, metabolism and elimination of those substances on the back end. It's because your liver is not taking the cholesterol out. It's because your bowels are not detoxing out the chemicals, the poisons, the heavy metals, everything you're eating and drinking. It's not metabolizing or excreting out the hormones once the estrogen has been utilized from your menstrual cycle or whatever part of the cycle you're in. I'm not saying it can't ever be a front end problem, but it needs to be more balanced. It usually is as much of a problem on the front end as it is on the back end. Because what I would do in case of the toxic dumpster, of course, what I would do is I would immediately put out the rat traps and get them, most of them gone, while I'm also on the phone to the local garbage facility asking them to come and empty my dumpster. I'm doing both, not one versus the other. But usually the problem was a dirty dumpster as opposed to anything I did to really encourage rats coming from some other source besides what was in the dumpster. So bad example, but good example, but you get the point. So that's the connection between insulin and all of these other things, is that it's definitely a metabolism problem. And then, of course, we all know the most common one is the diabetes. This is just someone flat out eating more sugar than the body can actually metabolize. So one of the things you have to realize is you are not born with an unlimited amount of insulin that can be produced. This machine was only designed literally with only so many gallons of insulin to be produced throughout a lifetime. So what happens in diabetes is you just used up all of your insulin earlier than somebody else. So what you did is you ate more carbohydrates more often to cause more insulin to be secreted quicker, so that if you're 45 and I have diabetes, but my twin sister does not, it's because I used up all of my gallons of insulin faster than she did. So same genetics, same mother, same everything, pretty much equal across the board. But I know where we're not equal, because I have diabetes and she doesn't, is that I ate way more carbohydrates in that same 10, 20, 40, 50 years of life than she did, that I'm diagnosed with diabetes and she is not. So that's what we're looking at from the blood sugar standpoint. It also then will cause heart disease. It causes all of these health situations. So again, the true enemy is actually insulin. It is induced by sugar and carbohydrates, but if you just didn't eat the sugar and carbohydrates, you would not have an insulin problem, because nothing else makes your body secrete insulin except for the carbohydrates. So that's the mechanism that we're looking at. So how do we know then what is too much, and how did we get to this from a science standpoint? This is a great book. I think I talked about it. It's called Life Without Bread. This is a wonderful one, and it talks all about not only bread, but it talks about having a life without bread and why bread and these carbohydrates are so detrimental. So the question becomes, now that you know I don't want you secreting insulin, we have to figure out what amount of carbohydrates you can do in a day to stay below the radar. So it's not that no insulin can be excreted, it's just that minimal insulin needs to be secreted in a 24-hour period. And so how you figure out, and this is based on science and body biochemistry, is the key organ that needs the sugar, by the way, interestingly enough, is not you for energy. That's actually the incorrect source. The organ that needs this sugar is your brain. So the only reason you technically need to eat carbohydrates is to keep some of your basic brain function going. But the problem is that how much carbohydrates does that brain need to function day to day, hour to hour, week to week? It's not as much as you think. So if you calculate the requirements of the brain, which is pretty much the most important thing, which again has the greatest carbohydrate need, you will arrive at the number of you need approximately 9.4 grams of carbohydrates per hour to keep the body and all of its basic functions functioning. Now, if you did that basically over a 24-hour day, that adds up to about 72 grams per day. Okay. So that actually is the equivalent of teaspoons of sugar, not tablespoons, not a half cup, quarter cup, whatever. It's teaspoons of sugar or less per day. So I've been doing this now for 30 years, and I have been having people gradiently work towards this number, because the magic number of 72 keeps the insulin from being secreted. And the reason for that is that this 9.4 grams of sugar in the form of glucose in the blood gets to the brain before the insulin has a chance to be secreted, because the brain needs it. It's like, ooh, sugar, give me that quickly. So it takes it it's 9.4 grams of sugar. If you ate more than 9.4, guess what's happening now? Now the insulin is secreted. Now it has to be metabolized. Now it's acting like the 2-year-old. So as long as it's less than 9.4 grams per hour and or 72 total grams within basically a 24-hour day, then you should, and there's a catch, but we won't upset you yet. You should be able to survive and you should be able to function at peak performance. Now, the problem is with that is that unfortunately, over my 30 years of clinical experience, that number unfortunately goes down depending on your age and at what phase of hormones you're in as a woman. So for every 10 years you get older, I am sorry to say that number goes down slightly. So it's more from your 10 to 20 years old, it's more like 72. And then 20 to 30, it's a little bit below 72. And then 34, it's definitely down more towards 60. And then again, you can kind of calculate, approximately each decade, it goes down another few grams. The reason for that is as you get older in a positive way, your body needs less. So you are no longer in the peak of your lifetime. You're no longer in what I call the baby making years. So once you end these baby making years, the body's like, okay, well, we don't need to be that intense anymore. No babies are coming or the babies they're out. We're done. So the brain's like, all right, well, I definitely don't need 9.4 grams anymore. I don't have to think. Well, I'm not a mom. I'm not a wife. And I don't have 17 children running around. So the brain's like, yeah, I'm going to kind of, cut back a little bit and take it easy a little bit. So the number unfortunately goes down for every decade you get older, but you can use 72 as a guide. The biggest thing is figuring out where you are now, and the secret is doing it on a gradient. So don't cry when you see your number. Just take the number, and like anything else you would do in life, you have a starting point and then you have an ending point, and then you need to give yourself enough time to reach that goal. I can tell you from a biochemical standpoint is the body does not like more than about 25 grams per day over the course of this bringing it down to come out. If you start doing too much too fast, the brain thinks you're dying. That's why you can't do this. So it's the biggest mistake I see women, especially making, is they think it's willpower. It's not willpower, it's survival. So your brain's in there used to whatever, 157 carbohydrates per day. And then all of a sudden it's down to 20. The brain immediately goes, oh my God, we're dying. Tell her to crave cookies, candy, cakes, donuts, ice cream. Get her to just eat out of the sugar bowl. We're dying. And you're not. But that's what the brain, that's the calculation and the data you gave it without realizing it. But if you do it on a gradient, the body and the brain, especially in all of your metabolic activities, can recalibrate with 25. So if you did 175 today, it's like, all right, that was 175. And then tomorrow you did 150, it'd be like, are we okay? But it's like, yeah, not too bad, a little bit different than yesterday, but all right, we can go with this 150. And then the next day you do 150 and it's like, okay, I guess this is our new normal, and 150 it is, and 150 it is. And then maybe a week or two later, you drop that 150 down to 125. The body will pause and it'll be like, what, are we dying? Nope, I don't think so. We only went from 150 to 125. That could just be a glitch. Okay, good. And then everybody's back to their normal operating basis and their normal routines. So the secret is whatever your number is you can't bring it down any more than about 25 grams every 7 to 14 days. So you can pretty much program out this is going to take at least 2 to 3 months, depending on your starting number, to get down into where the insulin will no longer be a problem and or be secreted. Now, to help with that, what I have here is we're going to put on the screen, and I'm more than happy to email to all of you, is how do you get there? So first thing is definitely doing the gradient approach. And what I want to do here is then just go, and I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go and take a look at some things here. So let's go here. So hopefully you can see that. So let me hit share. Is it there? Good. Let's see. You're going to just be looking at things with me because I don't know where it is. So let's start here. So we'll share this and then we'll go to the what to eat. So everybody can see the what to eat list. So what this list is these are the foods that do not cause your body to secrete sugar and then the insulin. So if you don't eat the sugar, it can't turn to the glucose in the body and then therefore can't trigger the body to secrete the insulin. So basically, this is the what to eat list to not have your body secrete insulin. And so it's definitely a lot of vegetables, some fruits. All of your nuts and seeds are allowed. All of your proteins are allowed, of course. All eggs are allowed. All of your fats are allowed, whether they're in the form of dairy or otherwise. All of your herbs, spices, and condiments are allowed, as long as you're not, drinking ketchup out of the ketchup bottle. But otherwise, all the condiments are allowed. And then beverages. So a lot of where we're getting too much of this sugar is you're already ruining your day by what you're drinking. So water with lemon or lime, coffee, you can do that hot or cold. If you do need to do a sweetener, the best one that makes your food sweet and doesn't create too much of an insulin reaction is stevia. Tea. Tea is a big one. Tea kind of has a bad rap that all we know is of that Lipton brown bag that you steep. And that's like terrible that's all we know about tea. Tea is actually wonderful. I make it hot. I make it cold. I think Starbucks has really helped out tea is that they make it shaken with ice and they put all these interesting flavors in there. And you can do like cayenne pepper and dragon fruit. And it's just wonderful. The only thing you don't want in there is you don't want it to be pre-sweetened. So you want to make your own herbal teas and you want to put in stevia. But I'm a tea maniac. I'm a coffee and tea maniac. So I love coffee. I love tea. I use tea basically as my dessert. So I have licorice tea and chai tea, and I have strawberry tea, and I have dragon fruit tea. And then I do it hot. I do it cold. I do it with milk. I do it without milk. I do it with stevia. I do all kinds of wonderful things. So a big thing you can do to really satisfy that sweet tooth and make you feel like you're getting something that's yummy is I do that with tea. And of course, I do that with coffee, depending on, interesting things you can mix into coffee, cinnamon, baker's chocolate, and then just really giving it yourself a tasty treat with no carbohydrates. Seltzer water is a great one when you get tired of just drinking plain old water. You can do that plain or flavored. And then one of the secrets here, and this is also not only for just liquids in general, but also when you're looking at cutting out alcohol, because everybody now argues is like, well, what about alcohol? You didn't mention that. Can I drink alcohol? Because if you look on the alcohol, a lot of your vodkas and whiskeys and ryes, when you look, there are no carbohydrates on it. And so like, see there, Dr. Lori, I can drink it. The problem is that the carbohydrates have already been burnt off, and alcohol is actually liquid sugar. So the second it hits the stomach, it instantaneously turns to glucose because the middleman has basically been eliminated. So when you have the bread, you still have the shell. You got to break down the bread and get into the shell, and then the carbohydrates come out. In alcohol, that shell has been eliminated. You're just down to the liquid that's left. So unfortunately, it's anywhere between 100 to 1,000 times worse for you, because you might as well just drink honey right out of the jar at that point, because the biochemical reaction of the alcohol is instantaneous because you've already made the sugar in its liquid form and the carbohydrates have been eliminated. So it's actually worse for you or not better. The reason I'm bringing that up is if you are struggling or battling as part of the carbohydrates, is what I do with these drinks is I put sparkling water, I put my herbal teas, I drink it in a wine glass, and I put it in a beer mug. It just helps. It makes it feel better. So I bought myself for a few Christmases ago these beautiful long crystal stemware, different shapes and sizes, the champagne glass and the wine glass. The wine glass, I got the one with the short top, and then I got the one with that big long one. So what I do for fun is I mix and match my drinks. And sometimes my husband will come home from work and I'm drinking seltzer water out of a champagne glass. It just really helps. So you feel like you're being bad and you're actually not being bad. So it's a great little trick to try. But what I can do is if you want that, the what to eat list, like I said, I'll get that to you. I don't know if I have it that I can upload it quickly, but I will definitely get you the what to eat list. So that really helps. So I wanted to share then just like the what to eat, because that's a big part of that. So we're going to go back and take a look at that again. If you didn't, you can definitely screenshot that. Like I said, I'll get you the prettier one if you would like it. So let me just go bring that up again. So let me share. Hopefully everybody can see it. And then let's see here. So give me a second I'll put that up first. Okay, good. So there it is. And then hopefully I can share. Good. So I don't know. It's just not sharing. It doesn't like what I have there. So hold on. I had it up a minute ago. Oh, I don't think you want to see my calendar. Let's see here. So share. So nope, don't want that. That's not what we want to share. Hold on. I don't know why it disappears. It doesn't like me. Let's go here. So let's go. Okay, good. So we'll just go look for it together. So let's go see if I can grab it, and let's go here. Okay, good. Perfect. So there it is, the what to eat list. So again, if you want, you can screenshot that. That's a great starting point. These are all the foods that, again, will not create that insulin reaction. And there's also some great cookbooks. Get some low carbohydrate cookbooks that can take these foods and turn it into recipes for you. And again, have some fun with the different things. The other thing I want to say about this list is you have to get creative. And we in America, we've gotten really bad about our creativity with food or food combinations that we won't put together. So a few years back, I had an opportunity to travel across several parts of Europe, and their viewpoint and the way they cook food is much different. And I think a lot of you watching right now might know of some of those interesting recipes that you saw grandma or great grandma make many decades ago. Like, for example, the Spanish put a fried egg on everything. Like, literally, I've like fried, I'm like, you ordered a donut and they put a fried egg on it. I mean, you get the point. So what you need to do is you need to be doing what I call more intuitive eating and more eating what the body wants. Now it can't be, the intuitive eating can't be that it wants, well, like I said, a donut and a milkshake, but you can start listening to it. So if it wants tuna fish and broccoli, you might be like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. But if that's what the body wants, give it to it. If it wants a fried egg on top of your lettuce, put a fried egg on top of your lettuce. I think part of the problem is with eating and how we've gotten ourselves into so much trouble in this country is we have this kind of robotic cookie cutter that you have to do it this way. Like breakfast has to be a bowl of cereal, or it has to be a bagel, or it has to include this. And, dinner can never be breakfast. You could never eat pancakes for dinner, or, why not? It's like, why can't we mix and match and have more interesting foods? Why can't I melt cheese on my steak? Like who's stopping me? So part of the trouble that you're going to run into with this what to eat list is not even a matter of what you can do or what would be nice to do. Is it's more your own mental confinement that either you believe and or you've been told or taught from others. So have fun with the list. Literally what I do, and you don't have to do this exactly, but I literally go to the grocery store without a shopping list, and I like walk around the store and I look and be like, well, that looks good, and I throw it in. If it doesn't look good, I don't throw it in. So some weeks chicken looks great, and other weeks I'm like, ugh, chicken, no. And then like, oh, that looks like a nice rump roast. Then I grab the roast instead. Or I go through the vegetable aisle and I see broccoli, and I'm like, ugh, no, I can't do broccoli. But I see some fresh asparagus. I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting. So a lot of it has to do with using the what to eat list as your grocery list and take that to the store and use that to shop, because you can't not get the foods on the list. And then based on the foods of the list, take a look and get creative. So melt cheese on whatever you would like. Put butter on your steak. Put butter on, apples. It's yummy. It's like we've gotten ourselves confined into these, oh, you can't eat that, or I have to eat this food a certain way. So if you can kind of, open up your mind a little bit to use that list, very generous, you can do way better with foods in general than you're probably doing right now. Okay, good. So then the what to the eat list is not in a book. So I don't know if it didn't come up on the screen there, but if it didn't, I will get you that. But the what to eat list is just I created it. It's nowhere. It's not in anybody's book. I'll email that over to you. So I'll see if I can get that to you. Actually, if you bear with me 1 second, I think it might be on my website. Maybe I can quickly get you the link there. I think, like I told you the one time, there's this private education center. Maybe I did put it there, so I can give you that list. Give me 1 second to do that while we're here live. Let me see if we have the what to eat list. Hold on, I got to search. I have a million and one things here. If you haven't gone to already, it's the drloripuskar.com. I can put that in the chat right now. Let me do that for you. So you have that, so you can take a look at the entire resource list. But this is where I'm looking right now, and I'm hoping it's called the what to eat list, and it should be there. So just give me a second. Like I said, we'll do it together. Let me see if I can find it. If anybody can find it faster, just let me know. But the what to eat list, let's see here. So yes, it's there. It's far down. I have it categorized. I have it under the masterclass materials under diet and food. So it's called What to Eat, and so you can download that list, and you can either screenshot it on the on your phone if you go there, and or you can do whatever you'd like. So let me see. It looks like I can get the list here. It's an older version, but it will do the trick. And let me put that in the link or the chat. So here's the actual link to the What to Eat list. So if everybody wants to go quickly take a look at that, we'll talk about it if you have any questions. Okay. Okay, good. So while you're all taking a look to see if you can find that What to Eat list, I'm going to go through. There's some questions in the chat here. And the first question is erythritol. So I'm not for erythritol because it's still a synthetic sugar. And just like all the other synthetic sugars, they'll all be off the market within the next 5 to 10 years. So I wouldn't use the erythritol. It's still not natural. It's still a chemicalized version of sugar. So stevia, remember we talked about this. It has to be stevia, and it only can say stevia on the label. So unless it says 100% stevia, then I wouldn't get it. And these foods are on this education page as well. You can take a look at that. The next question there is which fruits to avoid for too much sugar? Well, there is no taboo food, by the way, because if you just use the brain biochemistry of the 72 grams per day, if you use that sensibly, you could literally eat anything. You could literally eat a Hershey bar every day using that. Now, would you want to do that for nutritional value? No, of course not. But just looking at it at face value, I think a Hershey bar, I think it only has like 32 grams of carbohydrates, maybe 25, 27, something like that. So if you're allowed 72 for the day, you could almost eat 3 Hershey bars a day and still make it under the insulin reaction. Now, would you start getting other deficiencies? Of course you would. So you don't want to do that. So the answer is there's no food technically that is taboo. It's a matter of keeping it under the 72. And then if you want to feel nourished and gratified and satisfied and have huge meals with lots of flavor and that we're fulfilling, you're going to have to use the What to Eat list. But there is technically no fruit, but the ones that keep you out of trouble are on the What to Eat list. Okay, good. The next thing here, let's see. Yes, you didn't see the list. The question is like, can you do the sugar-free? Yes, long as it's not made with sugar. So anything that says sugar-free usually has an artificial sweetener in there. But if it just doesn't have sugar, it's fine. So yes, what I do is you can do the Lily bars. They're okay as far as the quality. Just be careful because, again, all of these companies sometimes use some chemicals, artificial sweeteners. So Lily bars are acceptable. And then what I do is I just buy basically like an 85% dark chocolate bar. So whether it's the 85% cocoa or cacao. So actually, yes, that isn't a misspelling on the word there. It's actually different. So cocoa and cacao, not exactly the same thing. But get yourself a good quality dark bar that only on the label says the cocoa or the cacao, maybe some salt, maybe a little bit of milk, and it has like the cocoa butter or butter. So it only has 4 ingredients, and sugar isn't one of them. Usually, what I do because I like a little bit of sweetness is you dip a little bit of the chocolate in just like a corner of the chocolate bar into like honey because I don't like the no sugar one. But again, you could do just literally just a drop of honey and it sweetens it up enough. And you can definitely do 6 drops of honey in a day and stay under your 72. So you can do that for sure. Let's see here. The page numbers in the book that we covered today. So let me go back so you have that. So we're in the Back to the Basics book. We were chatting. We started on page 55. We went far today. And we went all the way back to page, let's see, 70. So there was a decent amount. And some of them I just kind of briskly covered because we know that the food industry is bad. You can just remind yourself of how bad it is. And then it talks about insulin and the reaction, and then the specifics of how insulin then creates cholesterol problems, how insulin then creates diabetes, how insulin creates heart disease, and how insulin can then further create hormonal imbalances. So that's what we read out of the Back to the Basics book. And then the Y75 and the biochemical was out of a different book. It's called Life Without Bread. And this is from Dr. Lutz, Lutz, and Dr. Allen. So that is the biochemistry. So this particular book, Back to the Basics, says that sugar and the insulin is bad. This is, let's see, this book here is over 200 pages of nerdy scientific substantiation of why sugar is bad. So learn as much as you do, as you need to feel comfortable, and like nerd out as much as you can to really be, quote, buying into this. So I tell people, I've been doing this for 30 years, don't shoot the messenger. Do you think I, Dr. Lori, want you to be eating this little amount of sugar and carbohydrates? Do you think this is the body I wanted or designed? I mean, my two favorite foods literally are pizza and chocolate chip cookies. Like if I could live on those, I would, but I can't because I want to feel awesome. I have children I'm still in the raising, trying to launch them. I have a practice. I have 2 associates. I have all of you to take care of. It's like I can't afford health-wise to eat what I really want to. So it's not a matter of that I'm doing this to you. I'm in the same boat as you are. So, and I got a female body that's getting older every day that I've noticed. I'm coming up on a birthday in a few weeks. I won't even tell you, but it's definitely over 50. I'm like, what happened? So we're all in this together. And this is definitely one of the secrets to my success. How I've been able to manage to do everything is that I've been now doing this since 1994. So I'm literally, unfortunately, 30 years ahead of you, but it doesn't mean it's not worth doing for yourself from today forward for the next 30 years of your life. Okay, good. Let's see if there's anything else. Let's see. Water, we can just quickly talk about water and we'll start wrapping it up because we're coming up on the hour mark. So if there's anything else you want to say or ask, we're going to be continuing on with this carbohydrate insulin reaction next week, because next week is going to be how it specifically relates to hormones. And we're going to be going through some very specific biochemistry on all of the hormones, the traditional ones and some of the ones you don't know about, and how this number of this carbohydrate, what to eat, how it all ties together. Because it is the number one concern of just about every woman I've ever met is her hormonal system, whether she's 25 or 85 is her number one concern, and rightly so. So much of what we covered here today sets the stage. So all of the next week is going to be on how hormones are getting you in trouble, why you can't get them balanced, why synthetic hormones are not the solution, and how the diet and this insulin reaction plays into that. So that's all going to be part of the next master class. Let's see here. Yeah, so the water, water is a problem. You need to get good quality filtered water. We'll do a whole masterclass on water because most of the water you're drinking is poison. Most of the filters that you've purchased for your home or for your refrigerator are not working. So I'm not going to scare you about all of that today, but just know that we're going to have the water talk in a few weeks. But I think we're leading up to probably my most favorite and the most important one. They're all important in these master classes, but the hormones is going to be the crux. And then everything we do after the hormone next week is going to be further building upon what is going wrong with your hormones and why are hormones so much more of an issue today than they were 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or 200 years ago. It's not all insulin's fault. A good chunk of it is, but there's some other things that are getting you in trouble that once you've eliminated the insulin component, then there are a few other things on your to-do list that we're going to have to talk about. So that'll be the next several weeks of the master class, is once we've gotten to the top with the insulin coming together, what's happening with all of these other things. So I'm so glad you all learned a lot. You're so very welcome as always. This is so much fun for me. I love speaking to like-minded individuals and amazing women who really love this as much as I do. So please enjoy all the education on the link I sent over. Definitely at least get the what to eat. And we'll see you all again next week. So make sure you're in the next master class and we'll talk more then. And it's all about hormones. So we'll talk about that. Have a good night and we'll see you next week. Goodbye. Love you.